For 12 years, I believed I was living a perfect life. 12 birthdays, 12 Christmas mornings, 12 summer vacations, all with her, all with the woman I thought was the love of my life. Her name was Emma. And to the outside world, we were that couple, smiling in photos, holding hands at dinner, finishing each other's sentences. People said we were lucky. I believed we were blessed. But they didn't see the late nights I spent wondering why she never really opened up, why she never cried in front of me, why she always kept her phone on silent, why her past was a fog she refused to clear. And still, I trusted her. Every time a shadow of doubt crept in, she'd pull me back with a soft touch, a perfect smile, and those words that always disarmed me. I love you more than anything. And I believed her. Until the day I found the letter. I wasn't snooping. I was cleaning the attic, trying to find an old photo album for our anniversary. I moved a box, and a yellowed envelope fell to the floor. My name wasn't on it. Her name wasn't on it either. It was addressed to someone named Thomas. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but something about the way it was hidden, something about the dust that had gathered over it, told me it wasn't meant to be found. I opened it anyway. What I read made my hands go numb. It was a love letter. But not from her. It was to her, and it spoke of a secret life, of a plan, of years of pretending. I'm tired of watching you pretend to love him, but I know why you're doing it. Just don't forget our agreement. Agreement? My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. I read the letter again, and again. 12 years. 12 years of marriage. 12 years of my life. And now, one single piece of paper had shattered it all. I confronted Emma that night. She laughed, like I'd misunderstood, like I was being ridiculous, but I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't surprised. She was prepared, and that terrified me more than anything. She didn't ask me how I found the letter. She didn't even try to take it from my hands. Instead, she calmly sat down on the edge of the bed, folded her hands in her lap, and looked at me like I was some child throwing a tantrum. "You're being dramatic," she said. "It's not what you think." But I'd read the words, every sentence, every emotion etched by a stranger's hand, a man who clearly knew her far more intimately than I ever had. "Who's Thomas?" I asked. She hesitated, just for a second, but in that second I saw her walls crack. "It was a long time ago," she said. "He's no one now." But if he was no one, why was there a letter hidden in our attic? Why was it buried beneath boxes we hadn't touched in over a decade? I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't stop hearing his words in my head. "I'm tired of watching you pretend to love him." Pretend. Was all of it fake? The quiet Sunday mornings? The spontaneous road trips? The way she'd hold my hand in the middle of the night? I started remembering things differently. The way she'd smile but never laugh. The way she'd talk about our future but never make concrete plans. The way she never wanted kids, something I had always accepted without question. I spent the next few days digging, literally and figuratively. I checked old emails, scoured drawers, pulled out boxes we hadn't opened since we moved in. And then I found it. Hidden USB drive, taped beneath a drawer in her old desk. When I plugged it into my laptop, there were only 3 folders, no names, just dates. The earliest folder was from the year we got married. Inside were audio files, dozens of them. I clicked on the first one, and my world broke open. It was her voice, but not the voice I knew. Not the sweet, soft-spoken Emma. This voice was colder, sharper, detached. "Entry 1, she said. "He bought the ring, just like we predicted." "Predicted? I'll say yes. He's perfect on paper, easy to manage. He trusts everything I say." The voice laughed. 12 years of me thinking I was loved, but apparently I was a project. I sat there in the dark for hours, listening to every recording, every update, every cold, calculated log she had left behind. "He started talking about kids today," she said in one entry. I shut it down, told him I wasn't ready. He believed it. Of course he did. He thinks I'm close to my family. Joke's on him. I haven't spoken to my mother in years. She'd blow this whole thing up if she knew. Thomas wants me to end it, but I can't. Not yet. He's still useful. Useful. I wasn't a husband. I was a strategy. My heart didn't just break. It shattered, and in its place grew something I had never felt before. Rage. For a week I couldn't even look at her. She moved through the house like nothing was wrong. Cooked breakfast, kissed me goodnight, asked how work was, but every word from her mouth felt like poison. So I started pretending too. I smiled back. I laughed at her jokes. I became the perfect husband again. But this time, with eyes wide open, needed answers. Who was Thomas? What was the agreement? And why had she spent 12 years of her life with someone she clearly didn't love? I hired a private investigator. It didn't take long. Thomas Whitmore, former journalist. Blacklisted years ago for being involved in a massive corporate leak that nearly destroyed a pharmaceutical company. Vanished from the public eye. And guess who worked at that same company? Before she met me, Emma. Suddenly, the pieces clicked. She hadn't married me out of convenience. She married me for access. My father was on the board of directors. I had family connections in places that Emma and Thomas needed. I was the golden key. And for 12 years I'd been unlocking doors without ever realizing it. I remember sitting in my car outside our house, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I wanted to scream, to break things, to walk inside and throw the truth in her face. But then I remembered something she said in one of the recordings. He's easy to manipulate when he's emotional, but when he gets quiet, that's when I worry. So I stayed quiet, and I started planning. I knew confronting her wouldn't give me closure, not the real kind. She was too good at twisting the truth, too skilled at hiding behind half smiles and careful lies. So I decided to turn her own game against her. While she went about her days pretending nothing had changed, I began documenting everything, copies of the recordings, notes from the investigator, financial records, emails she thought she had deleted. I built a file thicker than a dictionary, and then I made a move I never thought I'd make. I called my father. We hadn't spoken much since I distanced myself from the family business, but this time I needed him. I told him about Emma, about Thomas, about how she'd used me as a pawn to gain access to confidential documents and leverage boardroom secrets. At first he was silent. Then he simply said, "Come to the office. We have a lot to discuss." That was the beginning of the end, for her. Over the next few days I watched Emma more closely than ever. Her habits, her phone calls, her little moments of nervous energy. She felt it. She didn't know what, but she knew something was coming. And then it did. A week later, she was invited to a private board meeting under the pretense of consultation. What she didn't know was that we had already found the evidence linking her and Thomas to the data leaks years ago. Her betrayal wasn't just personal anymore, it was criminal. She walked into that boardroom as my wife. She left in handcuffs, but the most surreal part, she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just looked at me and said, "I was hoping you'd never find out." 12 years. 12 years of pretending. 12 years of secrets. And still, she had the audacity to look at me like I'd broken her heart. But it wasn't over yet, because what I discovered after her arrest shook me even more than all the lies combined. Thomas was gone, dead, and not recently. He'd been dead for 10 of the 12 years. The truth hit me harder than I expected. Thomas, the man whose name haunted the letter, the plan, the secret behind Emma's love, had been dead for 10 years. I spent days trying to understand how she kept up the charade for so long. Who had she been talking to? Who had she been lying for? The private investigator found no signs of a new accomplice. No fresh messages or secret meetings. It was as if Emma had been trapped in a past that no longer existed, living a story that was already over. I confronted her one last time in the holding cell. She looked at me, tired and worn, but with that same cold smile. "You wanted the truth," she whispered. "Now you have it." I asked why. Why lie for 12 years? She said it was complicated, a mix of fear, guilt, and maybe love. She had started the relationship with Thomas when she was young, naive, and desperate. After his death, she clung to the memory, pretending their plans were still alive, as if keeping his ghost around kept her safe. Her love for me, a way to protect herself, to hide, to survive. I realized then that sometimes the darkest lies come from the deepest wounds. The woman I thought I knew was a stranger, but somehow I couldn't hate her entirely. I walked away that day with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear. The truth isn't always what it seems, and sometimes love is the most complicated lie of all.